Hi, welcome to Yomi. Japan is one of the safest countries in the world. With outstanding views and rich culture, it has become one of the most prominent places anyone would love to live. Nonetheless, beneath all that beauty, it hides terrifying stories that stick to your head and leave an uneasy feeling that doesn't fade away. This is the story of the Wednesday Strangler. Between 1975 and 1989, a series of murders occurred in Saga Prefecture. 7 women and girls were found dead within a radius of 20 kilometers. Despite these cases being separated by time, the authorities soon realized they had patterns that repeated every time he attacked. The most evident is that all the victims were female, ranging in age from 11 to 50. At least 3 were confirmed to be killed by strangulation, and nearly all of them disappeared on a Wednesday. Due to these unusual behaviors, the criminal was known as the Wednesday Strangler. The first victim was Yamasaki Tomiko, a 12-year-old girl who disappeared on August 27, 1975 in Kitagata. Because her mother worked the night shift, the girl would spend the entire day by her own. Thanks to the neighbors, it's known that the disappearance occurred between 7 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. as the girl was seen watching TV with a friend. During that time, something happened that caused Tomiko to leave the house, or at least that's what the investigation concluded, as there was no evidence or forced entry. The lights and television were still on, and no valuables were missing. 5 years later, her body was discovered in one of the poolside sewage tanks at Tsuko Primary School. On June 27, 1980, while workers were pumping out the tank during a police search related to another murder, they accidentally found the corpse. Beneath a pile of stones lay Tomiko's skeletonized remains. Her devastated mother identified her through a necklace and bloomers. Do you remember when I mentioned that the police were searching for clues related to another murder? Well, 3 days prior to the discovery of Tomiko's remains, the body of another woman had been found at the same primary school. On April 12, 1980, a young woman named Hyakutake Ritsuko disappeared while staying home alone. Around the same time she was missing, her family received a letter written in old kana orthography, containing messages such as, "She's not coming back," and "I want all of you to suffer." In addition, the family received multiple phone calls in which the voice of a young-sounding male threatened them not to reveal anything related to Ritsuko to the media. Approximately 2 months later, on June 24, a naked body was found floating face up under a manhole at Tsuko Primary School. Due to the fact that both bodies were discovered in the same area and the 2 girls were missing in similar circumstances, authorities determined the perpetrator to be the same. Ritsuko's case is kind of special, as she's the only victim who did not disappear on a Wednesday, but instead a Saturday. The next person to go missing was Ikegami Chizuko, a housewife who worked in a nearby factory. Her co-workers described her as a quiet and simple person with a nice working attitude. The disappearance occurred on October 7, 1981 in Shiroishi-cho. A witness stated that the last time he saw her was around 5:30 p.m. after she left work. A man who appeared to be in his 30s pulled up beside her in his car. For an unknown reason, she got in and was never seen again until 2 weeks later. On October 21st, her strangled body was located in Nakabaru, and around her neck there still was an electrical cord. This discovery is quite relevant for this story because until now, the cause of death had not been determined due to the advanced state of decomposition. For example, Tomiko's body was only skeletonized remains, while Ritsuko was distorted as a result of a long water exposure. This was the first time a corpse could be examined in depth, leading to the revelation that the method of murder was strangulation. Just 1 year later, another victim appeared. This time was a 5th grader known as Kumi. Because of Japan's strict minor privacy laws, her real name was never revealed. In this way, it preserved their privacy and prevented the family from social stigma. The 11-year-old girl disappeared on February 17, 1982 in Shirakabe. On her way back home, the little girl went missing after 4:20 p.m. At 8:40 p.m., as the child hadn't returned home yet, the concerned family members filed a police report and a full-scale search began. Her body was found the next day in a mandarin orange grove on the north side of Kitamo Secondary Gym just before noon. There were clear signs of sexual abuse, and more importantly, it was revealed that she was strangled to death with a sock. Another important thing is that the location where Kumi's body was found was approximately 3 kilometers from Nakabaru, where Chizuko's body was discovered. As you can see on the map, the distance between Nakabaru and Miyaki Choritsu High School, previously known as Kitamo, is about 3 kilometers or 50 minutes by car. The following day after her death, the girl's family received a postcard with a message stating he intended to hold her for ransom but ended up killing her after she made a fuss. Before Kumi's body was discovered, several reports of a suspicious man in his 30s were received. He was described as a tall, slender man with a straight nose and eyes. He drove a white car and was calling over housewives and high school girls nearby. One of these housewives mentioned that the man approached while she was waiting at the bus stop in Kitamoyasu-cho. She was persistently asked to get into the car, but refused, saying she would call the police or scream if he kept harassing her. The same white car was also seen near a primary school about 5 kilometers from the bus stop trying to lure a girl for a ride. Similarly, 3 female secondary students were approached by a man who offered them to take them home. At this point, the police concluded that these 4 cases were linked. It was no coincidence that those corpses were found in the same area, that 3 out of 4 disappeared on a Wednesday and the last 2 died from strangulation. Now the police were completely certain the perpetrator was the same. During the following 5 years, Saga inhabitants lived in constant fear, afraid that either they or their daughters might be the next victims. However, nothing happened. There were no more murders. They believed the Wednesday Strangler had vanished for good, but they were wrong. This is the final chapter of the story, and it's commonly known as the Kitagata incident. It all began in January 27, 1989, when a married couple were driving through the mountain forest near the Otogote Pass in Kitagata town. Deep in the forest, they saw 3 human figures lying down at the foot of a cliff beside the road. When they got closer, they realized there were 3 corpses and immediately reported the incident. The victims were identified as Fujise Sumiko, who had disappeared on July 8, 1987, Nakajima Kiyomi, who had disappeared on December 7, 1988, and Yoshino Tatsuyo, who disappeared on January 25, 1989. This incident wasn't initially linked to the Wednesday Strangler because there was no way to confirm the cause of death as a strangulation due to the body's advanced state of decomposition. Nonetheless, someone noticed that all the disappearance dates occurred on a Wednesday. July 8th, December 7th, and January 28th fell on a Wednesday, so it was likely the perpetrator to be the same person who has been terrorizing Saga Prefecture. As for Kiyomi's case, 1 week later after the disappearance, her husband received a call from a middle-aged man. This man spoke in a Saga dialect mixed with a Kansai dialect. He said, "I heard you found your wife," and when the husband asked where, he replied, "Yakigome." Yakigome means roasted rice. This is a traditional rice food usually served at local festivals or traditional establishments. The husband also asked his name and he replied, "I am a person you know," and the call was suddenly cut off. The police were unable to determine whether it was some form of revenge or what that man meant by the word yakigome. Since that first call, both the man's residence and the place where he worked started getting phone calls in which only silent breathing could be heard. Despite all efforts, the culprit could not be found. There was no way to establish why he attacked those 3 women, as they had different routines and lifestyles. The only 2 patterns that repeated were the method of murder and the Wednesday as the perfect disappearance date. Many suspects were blamed, but in the end they were always acquitted. For instance, on November 1989, a 26-year-old man who had been detained for minor crimes made a written statement admitting he was responsible for the 3 women's death. However, sometime later he withdrew the statement. He said he was forced to sign that statement. As a result of his confession inconsistency and lack of evidence, he was finally released. Besides, his age and voice didn't match the criminal's characteristics. In the end, this case was never solved, and the police had no other choice to close it indefinitely. Either due to the absence of a motive to kill the victims, or due to the fetish involving strangulation. To this day, the Wednesday Strangler remains as one of the most unsettling and haunting figures in Japan's criminal history. If you have any horror stories, do not hesitate to reach me out via Gmail. I will be more than glad to share your story here in the channel. This is Yomi, and you may leave now.